The pitch is looped towards shortstop. Petroselli's back. He's got it. The Red Sox win. And he's pandemonium on the field.
Welcome to the Great American Collectibles Show, brought to you each week by the National Sports Collectors Convention. Join us every Wednesday evening at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and get the latest news from the greatest experts in the sports collectibles world. You can watch us on the Great American Collectibles Facebook page, as well as YouTube, or you can listen to us on Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, or any of your favorite podcast platforms. And now your host, award-winning sports collectibles author, Tom Zappola.
Welcome to the Great American Collectibles Show. My name is Tom Zappola. My two co-hosts, Red Sox Hall of Famer Rico Petroselli and Boston sports personality John Mallory. They are not here. I'm traveling solo. Rico had the opportunity, guys, to either come here or do two Red Sox gigs at Fenway Park for a lot more money. So he chose to do the Fenway Park thing. So that's why Rico's not here. My guests for the first hour, dear friends that have been with the show since day one, Al Crisafulli from Love of the Game Auctions, Joe Orlando, Executive Vice President of Heritage Auctions, former President of PSA, Collectors Universe, Chairman of his high school junior prom, all of these guys. And other good friend, John Taube, Mr. Batman, the foremost bat expert in the country from JT Sports. Welcome, guys. Listen, we're going to be all over the place. If you have questions, feel free to ask. We're going to talk a little bit. We want to talk about the hobby today. What's going on in the hobby, what's happening in the hobby, young collectors entering the hobby and what's happening. Do we need to talk about any of the news from the last couple of weeks, or do we not? I don't think it's necessary. You know why?
You talk about whatever you want.
Okay, all right. John Taube, we're going to talk to you first. And by the way, the director of the National, I think Joe Drellick will be joining us shortly, or Shane Wynn, his communications director. Somebody will. John, your thoughts on this National? You've been here many years. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, from what I can see, it appears to be the. Can everybody hear me? By the way. For all intents and purposes, it appears to be the most highly attended show. Chicago was always a great venue, but this year appears to have outdone them all so far.
Really, Joe?
Yeah, you know how I feel about this venue. It's great to hear that we're going to be here for the next couple of years now, so 3 years in a row. I think everyone loves it. You can walk to the show from the hotels. It's close to the airport, and not surprisingly, as John mentioned, the attendance has been absolutely astounding.
Al, are you happy with what's going on so far?
Yeah, I'm thrilled with the crowd. I'm thrilled with the amount of kids that are here, which is great for the long-term health of the hobby, I think. And I'm thrilled with the amount of people who are interested in the vintage side of the hobby, which is where we live. And so it's great to have so many people coming by our booth and asking questions and that sort of thing. So it's been great.
You know, and if anybody, again, if you have a question, we'll just raise your hand. We'll get a mic to you, because I really want to talk about the influx of what's happened in this hobby with vintage and modern. I mean, when we first started, I don't know, 15, 16, 17 years ago, Joe and, working together, Joe, I mean, vintage was 80%, I think, of what was going on. Everybody was collecting vintage cards. Vintage is still strong, but the influx of modern and ultra-modern cards and memorabilia has just exploded, and I think it's because of the younger generation. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Al and I were talking about this right before the show. I mean, everyone starts by collecting modern. When we were growing up, what are you collecting? You're opening packs, you're collecting whatever the current products are. So to see the participation from so many young people in this room, that bodes really well for the future of the hobby.
Al?
Same. I absolutely think it's great. you know, it's a whole universe that's drawing so many people in, and it's cool to collect. So, you know, it's, again, we live in the vintage side of the hobby, but a lot of these young people who are starting with modern stuff are learning about the history of the game, and as they do that, they're becoming more involved in the vintage side.
Now, the people sitting here today, right here, how many of you are modern card collectors as opposed to vintage card? One, two modern, and how many are vintage people here? Okay, interesting, very interesting. Before we get to Shane, John, what about on the bat side of it? I mean, you've been dealing with game used bats for a long time. Too long, right? So, what are you seeing in the vintage bat world versus the modern bat world? I mean, are you getting more and more modern memorabilia these days?
Well, we have I would say it's probably a 60% mix between current players and vintage players. With the new, with vintage, it's simply a lot of the good material is really in collections, and unless somebody is compelled to sell a collection, you know, for whatever reason, we're finding it very difficult to get items like, just to name a couple players, Harmon Killebrew, Ernie Banks, these bats, not too long ago. When I say that, I mean, say 10 years ago, you would see them in every auction. And now, very few. They're very few and far between, which is a testament to just how rare the vintage material is.
So what about the modern, the Ohtani bats, the Mike Trout bats, now like the Roman Anthony bats?
Well, it's tough to understand when you've been around as long as I have with the vintage bats, but the newer bats are now, and maybe we'll call it like rookie card fever. These bats of players like, is it Pete Crow?
Say that again?
Is it Pete Crow from the Cubs? I mean, we're selling a modern day bat of a player like that for over $3,500.
Crazy.
Wow. And before, modern bats of players were $100, $200, $300, but now there's a fever, if you will, with younger people too, because a lot of the buyers now are not middle age as you find in the vintage market, but the younger buyers are they're very enthusiastic and trying to figure out where they get the money to spend.
And we're going to talk about that in a second. I want to introduce Shane Wynn, is the communications director for this event. Shane, thank you for coming.
Hey, it's great being here.
I know that you've been running around like a madman today, but kind of give us an overview of what your thoughts are on how the National is going.
Yeah.
And I know you guys are doing an awful lot. Joe Drellick and all of them, Jimmy and Brian.
JBJ, we call him.
Why don't you give us a little overview?
Yeah, well, look, I'll tell you this. Like, we're on Friday, Wednesday, Thursday, the amount of traffic coming through the doors here, it's, we don't have counts yet, but I would say we're on pace for this being probably the biggest national we've seen. It's what it feels like. We'll know at the end, but it's been an incredible turnout. It's been super exciting. Every day it's felt like it was the only day and that everybody was trying to be here. We've got that expanded space upstairs with new dealers. We had such a high demand for dealers that couldn't get in, right? They couldn't get in to deal. And the guys were like, we got to fix this. And so we've got all of this space now for new dealers. And I've been up there a couple times. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to go upstairs. But, it's been kind of a madhouse up there.
Do you know how many new dealers are there this year?
I think there's 75 new booths.
Wow.
Up there.
That's
yeah,
fantastic.
so it's a significant footprint. And if you've been up there, you see that the footprint available in that space, we're not taking anywhere near all of it yet. So, we're on a potential trajectory here. We're going to be here for 3 years.
Yeah.
So within 3 years, we're going to have this thing pretty dialed in. But I'm hopeful that even more dealers are going to have an opportunity to be able to set up and be a part of this, which is what a lot of them want.
Well, you know what's happened here? I mean, Joe and I were talking about it before we came up here. It's just amazing as to, I don't even know what you call it, the diversification of different caliber levels of entertainment. I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, again, 15 years ago, there were car dealers, there were auction houses. Now it's entertainment, it's show business. It's really, it's an amazing thing.
Yeah, the National has evolved as the hobby has evolved, right? So, years and years ago, like when I started collecting in the early 80s as a teenager, it was out of garages, right? And it was me and my buddies, and we're literally trading, for fake money, right? And cards, basically. And there's so many different ways today that people that are enthusiasts in the hobbies trade and why they trade.
Yeah.
That it's diversified the hobby, but it's also diversified the fan base, right? So you've got people coming through the doors today that they may not be really hardcore collectors, but they see value in coming here because there's experiences that they get to be a part of that make them excited, whether that's like seeing Pete Crow Armstrong and getting his signature, or watching live breaks all afternoon. Like those are things people do today on YouTube, and we bring it into a three-dimensional context here. This is it will continue to be that evolution, but what's never going to change here, all of it is in service of the hobby.
Right.
Great. Thanks for coming by. I know you're running all over the place today, and I want to thank you, and make sure you thank Joe and Brian and Jimmy for us, please.
Yeah. And before I leave, if I can say one thing, because I heard it being talked about when I was getting on stage here about next generations. And give the National a little plug here. So 3 weeks ago, the National launched a new initiative called the Youth Collector Clubs Initiative. And we did this in partnership with Curtis Granderson, who hopefully everybody at this table knows.
Sure.
Curtis lives in Chicago. He played ball at UIC. He runs a foundation out of UIC called the Chicago Baseball and Educational Academy. And we're a partner with him to launch this Youth Collector Clubs initiative, which is all about bringing new kids into the hobby, as well as using card trading to teach kids life skills. So teach them entrepreneurialism, teach them capitalism, negotiation, community building. These are all life skills that you can learn through card trading. And I literally just left having 21 kids here on the floor. We brought them for 2 hours to do a huge immersion experience where we took them around to various dealers and various activations to give them a sense of what this hobby looks like today. Got them really excited. Gary V signed cards for everybody. The Tom Brady vault guys let us go into the vault. A lot of really cool experiences. So we are raising money to underwrite that program. You can go to pristineauction.com. They're a partner. We're running an auction of some amazing items right now. It doesn't close until the end of the event, but I encourage everyone to check out some really cool collectible items and help underwrite this initiative.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Shane. Shane Wynn from the National. Thank you, Shane.
What a job they're doing with this show.
Oh, fantastic.
They
really are doing a good job. By the way, we have a couple of giveaways a little later on. We have a couple of trivia questions, and they're not easy. We're going to be giving away a copy of the book that myself and my wife Ellen, and actually Joe, did for Ken Kendrick, the owner of the Arizona Diamondbacks, the Diamondback Collection. So we'll be giving one of these away. And then we're going to be giving one of the books that Ellen and I did with my partner, Rico Petroselli, called An All-Stars Cardboard Memories, a great book. Rico he really played in a golden era of baseball. Rico played with or against 55 Hall of Famers. And the 55 Hall of Famers that he played against, you're talking guys like Mickey Mantle, Harmon Killebrew, Rod Carew, Frank Robinson. I mean, the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
So this book is a story. Rico and I had a blast doing this book because I would do a series of interviews with Rico in some Gilman, and I would ask Rico, tell me about Harmon Killebrew. And he would just start talking about Harmon Killebrew or his relationship with Mickey Mantle. And the really good stuff I still have on my phone that we never had to, we could never develop. But anyways, so we're going to give a couple of these away. We have some other giveaways. We also have a couple of signed Rico baseball cards, graded, authentic. But I want to talk about, again, the influx of the young generation. I think it's great for the hobby, what they're seeing. My question is, I'm a vintage guy, as you guys know, and I'm always concerned about, is the vintage card market, is the vintage memorabilia market going to be left in the dust? What are your thoughts, Sal?
No. I think particularly with baseball, but sports in general, can you guys hear me? Sports in general does a great job of preserving its history through statistics. So, it gives us as fans the ability to appreciate players who played 100 years ago, 75 years ago, 50 years ago, because we measure them all in the same context. So where we're looking at a player who hits a lot of home runs or strikes out a lot of batters today, we're comparing them to people like Sandy Koufax and Walter Johnson and Willie Mays, and so I think that creates interest in those eras and sort of preserves the history of the game that way, and I also think that baseball in particular has done a great job of incorporating players from the Negro Leagues into the whole thing now, so there's a renewed interest in that. So I think it's great, and I don't think it's going away. I think the vintage stuff is going to continue to be strong.
Joe?
I mean, look, I didn't see Babe Ruth, even though I look like I'm old enough to have seen Babe Ruth play. I didn't see Babe Ruth or Willie Mays or Mickey Mantle play, but we all have to start somewhere. And most people, 99.9%, start with current products. And then once they fall in love with collecting, they fall in love with the game, as Al said, in the history of the game. What do? We naturally start going backward. We start learning more about it, and we find that fascinating. What I love about the National is that when you're walking up and down the aisles, especially you see all these young people doing it, they are exposed immediately to all sorts of things. They may be coming here to buy one type of thing, but they're exposed to 20 other categories that they may not be familiar with. And I have watched the reactions, especially when people are by the Heritage booth. Younger people are coming by. They can't believe they're seeing a 1960 photo matched Mickey Mantle uniform in front of them. So they're constantly being exposed to all different types of categories, whether it's vintage or modern. So I see nothing but positive things.
John, what are your thoughts on this, again, young kids coming into this hobby, getting exposed to what Joe's saying they're getting exposed to? Are you seeing it on the memorabilia side that there is some interest from a younger generation in some of the older memorabilia?
Oh, sure. Regardless of the age, a fan of the game is, has great interest in the history of the game. We have a lot of younger people who are, as Joe just said, they walk by the uniform of, Pete Rose or a Babe Ruth, and they're, these, to the younger generation, these are like mythical, entities, if you will. And we see that, the opportunity that some of these people have to actually grab a bat or put on a cap that was worn by Babe Ruth or Mickey Mantle or Willie Mays, Jackie Robinson. I mean, I sit here, I mention these guys' names, I get goosebumps.
Right.
You know, because you're talking about really the foundation of baseball, and baseball, regardless of what they say about football, okay, is the American pastime.
I agree with that. I totally
There's
agree with
no
that.
question.
I want to ask these young kids right up front. Hey, Ellen, can you do me a favor? Can you grab this end mic, please? John, can you hand just hand the microphone to Ellen? Come on, you can do it, John. All right, I want to ask these young kids, starting with the kid with the Sox hat on. I want to ask you a question now. What do you collect?
I collect baseball and football.
Okay, and you collect modern baseball cards, I'm assuming, correct?
Modern and some vintage.
That's what I want to hear. Now, this is the killer now. Of the vintage players, who do you consider a vintage player?
Like, probably like 60s or lower.
Oh, all right. That's a great answer. Do you have any favorites that you own?
I have a Pete Rose and some Babe Ruth cards.
Very cool. Very cool. See,
What's your oldest card?
I think my oldest is from like the 50s.
Yeah.
Very, very nice. You're making my heart feel good. Now, this young lady, do you collect cards?
I collect football cards and garbage pail kids.
Cool.
You sound like my grandkids. So, of the football cards you collect, I'm assuming you collect the modern football cards, correct?
Yes.
Do you have any favorites?
I like Joe Burrow, and I'm a fan of the Dolphins.
You're a fan of the Dolphins. Not many people are. Just kidding. Just kidding. And how about the young man on the extreme right there? Now, what do you collect?
Just baseball cards.
And from what era?
The modern.
Modern?
Do you have any interest in the older stuff?
Oh, I like most of the older stuff. I just don't have any of it.
Now, on the modern stuff that you collect, do you collect just signed cards, or does it matter?
It doesn't matter. I'll collect anything.
And do you have signed cards?
Yeah.
Okay, because I want to ask. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I wanted to ask you guys this whole phenomena of signed cards. 15 years ago was a no-no.
Yeah.
Right? It was a no-no 15 years ago. I mean, if you had a signed baseball card, it really, many people thought it brought the value of the card down. Today, it's just the opposite.
Yeah.
Now, question to you, Al, first is, are you seeing an influx of signed vintage cards?
Yeah, absolutely. And the interest in them is huge for exactly that reason. Back in the day, even in this as recently as the 70s and the 80s, autographing a baseball card was a no-no because it ruined the condition of the card. Anybody who's here who's my age knows this, and so those few people that actually did try and get signed cards, those cards are worth a ton now because they're much more rare.
Really? All right. I'm sorry. I used to be a really champion card flipper. Scale, as we used to call it.
Sorry, Al. Tom was focusing on his delivery there.
I was, I used
Your
to be
mechanics
really,
are a
really
mess.
good.
Yeah, you're gonna need the surgery.
Tommy John.
Tommy John.
All right, now what are you seeing though with signed cards?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. So in the 1990s, you started to see the manufacturers introduce signed cards in their products. And at first, it was received with sort of a mixed reaction from collectors. And now, as you've said, I mean, those are the chase cards now a lot of times. They're the limited edition ones, and they have that personal connection because the player signed the cards. So with vintage, as Al talked about, now all of a sudden there's an explosion in vintage, but I think that's in part due to the fact that modern manufacturers have made autographed cards so desirable, so now people are rethinking and re-looking at the vintage signed cards, and now some of those sell for astronomical.
All right, so I want to ask both of you guys a question. Card manufacturers are all here. Panini, Topps, Fanatics, everybody's here. So I have a Roman Anthony. I'm going to use Roman Anthony because I'm a Red Sox fan. I have a Roman Anthony rookie card, okay? It's spring training. Hi, Jared. It's spring training, and I see Roman Anthony at spring training, and I hand him a card, and I ask him to sign it. He signs it, okay? Now, Roman Anthony cuts a deal with Panini or whoever he signed a bunch of cards before they're even released. Now, what I call manufactured rarities, there's a little hologram on it, there's a piece of his mother's apple pie on it, whatever, okay? That card that's being released by the manufacturer is infinitely more valuable than the card that I handed Roman Anthony at spring training to sign. So let's talk about that. Is this a good thing, what they're doing, what I call manufactured rarities?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I think some people have a love-hate relationship with it, but here's the good news. With these, so-called manufactured rarities, limited edition cards, these chase cards, the beauty of it, the positive side of it, is you know exactly how many of them were made and issued. In vintage, one of the disadvantages that we have is we guesstimate a lot of the times how many are known or how many have survived of different rarities throughout history. That is a huge advantage of these cards. They come from the manufacturer. They may be one of 1, 1 of 10, 1 of 100, but at least as a buyer, you can go into it knowing this is the total population of these specific cards that were made, and I'm going into it with the essential information to make that decision. Sometimes with vintage, it's a little bit of a guesstimate. So there is a positive side to the manufactured rarity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, for me, in the niche of the hobby that I live in, I am much more interested in something's rarity because only this many have survived, right? As opposed to only this many were made. But I understand the appeal to both. It's the thing about the hobby that makes the hobby great is there's so many different ways to be involved in it and so many different things to get enthusiastic about. And you can go sort of in and out. There was, we've been handing out packs of cards to kids in our booth, and with the caveat that they have to open the pack right there, right? And we want to see who they got.
Right.
The kid pulled a 1 of 10 Christian Yelich autograph card out of a pack in my booth that we gave him, and I thought that was really cool. And I don't collect that stuff at all, but it was just really neat to see, he knew right out of the pack, this is 1 of 10. And I've got a whole bunch of cards on display in my booth that there's only a handful of known examples because that's how many survived. It's the same kind of concept, right? So it was cool to see it in action, so to speak.
We are chatting with John Taube from JT Sports. JT, what are your thoughts?
No, well, I had a question. I understand the manufactured rarity too, especially when you get to 1 to 5. But not being directly involved in the card market, I have my question. Look at Mike Trout. Now I know when they first issued his signature cards, they were very sought after, very valuable. If a modern player gets hurt or starts to slump and is not the player that
or
they
has
were,
a scandal or something,
has a scandal, even with the rarity of that card, is there a diminished value?
For sure.
I would think, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to mention names, but there's a few players that I can remember. One player in particular who's no longer playing. His card was going for thousands and thousands of dollars as soon as I don't even think he was up in the majors yet. And there was a scandal, and that card, you can't give it away now. So I think you do have to be careful when it comes to that.
Yeah, if one of the considerations is the financial value of the thing, if you're just collecting for the passion of collecting, then it doesn't really matter if the player's career, if he was Mark Fidrich. Mark Fidrich is a guy that I can remember, who set the world on fire for 1 year. Right? And can you guys remember 1976 and what that was like and why? I mean, how great was that? And his card is worth peanuts. but he was an awesome guy.
Good point.
And collecting that card and having that rookie card just brings me back to when I was a kid, and I love that, right? So maybe Brian Taylor is that same thing, or Todd Van Poppel, or however many different people, and so the financial value of those cards has diminished immensely, but that's only one reason to collect.
Good point. Joe?
I was really, the question was really not to focus on like a Todd Popple or, Mark Fidrich the Bird.
Yeah.
But one of these cards that are manufactured, like one of 5.
Right.
One of 6, one of 10, whatever the case may be. Even with that limited amount, is there a diminished value with the as rare as they
let's
are?
use Wander Franco as an example. Okay. Wander Franco's a good example.
Yeah.
Perfect. Right. When he first busted in, there were a very limited amount of cards, and some of his cards were going for $10,000. Now, I would assume that.
Probably not so much anymore.
Exactly, right. I think that would be an understatement, right? That Wander Franco card that somebody paid $10,000 for is not worth anything near there. John, is that pretty much what you're saying?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Go. Yeah.
I think for those of us who grew up maybe in the, let's call it the 1980s, the first hobby boom, speculating on players, it's not a new thing, even though they talk about it so much nowadays. We did the same thing in the 1980s. This is the difference. The stakes are so much higher.
Yeah.
Like you could buy, 100 Eric Davis rookies or Ron Kittle rookies or whoever it was in the 1980s. Some of them panned out, some of them didn't, but you were spending 50 cents here and $2 here. Yeah, now the stakes are so high that, to John's point, somebody gets hurt who, his card is worth $10,000. How about $100,000? How about $1 million? We've had $1 million, 7-figure sales. That's where it gets, that's where it's very different today than it was 20, 30, 40 years ago.
We're chatting with Al Crisafulli from Love of the Game Auctions, Joe Orlando from Heritage Auctions, and John Taube from JT Sports. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Curry, a 2-time child cancer survivor, recipient, and advocate for Lucy's Love Bus. The mission of Lucy's Love Bus, 501c3 nonprofit, is to provide joy, comfort, and quality of life for the entire family of children with cancer. Since 2006, they have delivered love and comfort to over 3,000 children with cancer and their family members across New England. The dream of Lucy Grogan, an 11-year-old cancer patient, was to help kids with cancer who are suffering right now, before there is a cure, by offering free integrative therapies like art, music, horseback riding, and many other activities. Unfortunately, Lucy passed away, but her dream lives on, and today Lucy's Love Bus is thriving.
I'm Red Sox Hall of Famer Rico Petroselli. I hope that you'll consider supporting Lucy's Love Bus and all of those children who have been stricken by cancer. The Great American Collectibles Show is partnering with Lucy's Love Bus to help these kids. Let's continue Lucy's dream. Please go to lucyslovebus.org for more information.
Since 1996, Brian Drent and the staff at Denver's Mile High Card Company have led the charge in the collectibles hobby. Mile High is a full-service dealer specializing in buying and selling cards and offers a competitive consignment program for all collectors. Whether it be their computerized want list service, appraisals, or auction services, Mile High has it all. If you've been searching for a company with a selection of high-grade vintage 1888 to 1970 baseball cards and memorabilia that shares your passion, aim high, Mile High. Go to milehighcardco.com or call 303-840-2784 for more information.
For more than 30 years, Robert Edward Auctions has been the industry leader when it comes to helping you realize the most money for your baseball cards and sports memorabilia. In addition to their unparalleled reputation for honesty and integrity, they reach the largest number of bidders in the business and offer lower sellers' fees, as well as generous cash advances up front on your valuable material. Contact them today at 908-226-9900. That's 908-226-9900 or at robertedwardauction.com.
This is Brian Drent, president of Mile High Card Company. Is your sports card and memorabilia collection properly insured? For easily replaced personal property, homeowners insurance is all most people need. But for prized possessions that you may have spent a lifetime collecting, it doesn't go nearly far enough. Collectibles Insurance Services has been insuring for over 50 years. They offer a full range of protection and a $0 deductible at an affordable rate with no appraisals required. I know because they insure my collection. If you have a minute, go to collectinsure.com and learn more about insuring your personal card or memorabilia collection.
Hi, this is Dan from Memory Lane Auctions, here to remind you that the renowned Memory Lane Collectibles Company has served as a beacon of light to the collecting community for the past several decades. Indeed, folks, it has been our utmost privilege and pleasure to provide the most enthusiastic collectors with an abundance of the finest sports cards and memorabilia for America's most coveted sports personalities via our world-class auctions. Whether you choose either a private sale transaction or the auction route, Memory Lane cordially invites you to reach out to us to maximize the value of your prized possessions. Also, it is not just sales that we pride ourselves on being the best of the rest, because if you are seeking a particular keepsake for your esteemed gathering, we will be relentless in our quest to find that special piece to fulfill your collecting dreams. So no time to wait. Reach out to us today for the purposes of capitalizing on our unparalleled marketing capabilities. Simply pick up the phone and dial 877-606-5263. That's 877-606-LANE, or find us on the World Wide Web at www.memorylaneinc.com. Now is the time for your valued consignment to ultimately become another one of Memory Lane's record-setting prices.
How would you like to own the bat that was used by your favorite player when he hit that towering home run or game-winning base hit? Now look no further than JT Sports, specializing in the sale and authentication of professional game-used bats. As the official authenticators of professional model game-used bats for PSA DNA, JT Sports will guarantee the authenticity of any bat purchased from them. JT Sports also buys and sells game-worn uniforms, gloves, and baseball equipment. The unique quality of the collectible is what JT Sports is all about. Give them a call at 609-487-8003 or check them out at GameUseBats.com.
We're back. We are chatting again with Al Crisafulli from Love of the Game, John Taube from JT Sports, and Joe Orlando from Heritage Auctions. All right, we're going to give away a book right now.
Did you see that catch?
What catch?
Did you
No,
see
I
that
did
catch?
not.
He can
One hand, right?
One hand just.
There we go. There we go.
Pretty great.
All right, so there's some vintage guys out there. This is, by the way, Joe, you need to sign this. Ellen and I have already signed it. All right, so this is a copy of the Diamondbacks collection, the 50 of the greatest cards in sports collecting history. I don't know if any of you have read the book. This book came out. We wrote this book about 2 years ago, a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago.
Maybe 5 or 6.
Was
The
it
time
really?
flies. It's a long time.
I guess it was. Anyway, this is the book about the collection that belongs to Ken Kendrick, owner of the Arizona Diamondbacks. We worked with Ken for about a year and a half, and quite frankly, he was a pleasure to work with. And everybody knows the famous Honus Wagner card, or the infamous Honus Wagner card. That's one of the cards. You know what that card is worth now? What would your guesstimate be?
Today?
Today.
30 million.
I said 25.
Yeah.
I said 25 million.
The 8?
It's an 8.
The most famous card in the hobby?
I don't know if it's the most
I think you're low.
Yeah.
You
Could
really
be.
do,
Could be.
huh?
I do.
Could be.
Well, I think his entire collection. I try to put pen to paper, and I had this collection somewhere around 150 million for the 50 cards. So, I don't know. All right, so this is a very. I don't know if it's an easy question. If you're a vintage collector, try not to use your cell phone to Google it, unless. I mean, if you can, but if you have to, you have to. Okay. This book, I was a big T206 guy when I was collecting. I worked on my T206 collection for a long, long time. One player in the T206 collection got me started in collecting that, and actually got me started writing the first book, the T206 collection, The Players and Their Stories. So what is Lena Blackburn famous for?
Ooh, this is a great one.
What is Lena Blackburn famous for? Now, Lena Blackburn was a third baseman. I'm sorry, he was a catcher. He was a catcher during that T206 era, 1909, 1910. He was a horrible catcher, as a matter of fact. Wasn't any good. But he made a contribution to baseball that is still in effect today. Does anybody know? Now, if you don't know, now you can pull out your phones. Lena Blackburn. Nobody knows.
Had one of the greatest impacts on baseball of anyone who's ever played.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Get your phones out. No. Close though. No. No. Speak up. No. Lena Blackburn made one contribution that is still in effect today, and I'll give you a little hint. That contribution is used in every single baseball game today.
Started selling Cracker Jack.
No. You don't know who Lena Blackburn is. Come on, let's go. Take your phones out.
A lot of people don't know this. This is a really cool thing.
Steve Lane, what do we got?
Yes.
Bingo! Come on up and get the book. Lena Blackburn is the guy. You're out. Lena Blackburn. Here you go. Congratulations. Lena Blackburn. Baseball players used to complain about the sheen on baseballs, and Lena Blackburn was the guy. He discovered a mud pit in the Delaware. It was
right alongside the Delaware
River,
Uh-huh.
and he found it's still proprietary mud that you were able to rub baseballs in and not dirty them and keep the sheen on it. And today, every single baseball before a baseball game is rubbed in Lena Blackburn mud.
And that place on the Delaware River is secret. He handed over the company to a family that still does this.
It's like the Coca-Cola formula.
Yeah.
Right?
Every year they drive out with a little pickup truck and a couple of 55-gallon drums, and they scoop up the mud from along the banks of the river, and then they bring it back and they put it into little jars that they ship off to each major league team. And before every game, the umpires rub up a couple of dozen balls with Lena Blackburn's baseball rubbing mud.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And that guy got me started in this industry. Thanks, Lena. I want to talk about, these are all vintage collectors, but women have really they've started to embrace this hobby. Now, how responsible is Caitlin Clark for what's going on in the hobby with women? Joe, I'm going to ask you this.
I get put on the spot on this one. No. Well, there's two things going on. I think there's more women participating in general. So there's that, and then if you're talking about the WNBA's popularity taking off, then there's no question who the face of that sport is. So I think there's two different things going on. Caitlin Clark is driving that sport to new heights, and then you have just more general participation in the hobby across all sports, across all things that maybe doesn't have anything to do specifically with her.
Al?
I agree. We have seen a lot of new bidders who are women who are bidding on vintage cards and vintage sports that have nothing to do with the WNBA. But, naturally, I think, the just explosive popularity of Caitlin Clark definitely contributes.
Do you want to contribute to this?
Of course. Just watching, obviously I'm never was a WNBA fan. However, anytime I see a clip or I see a play that she has made, first of all, the way she buries a three-pointer is unbelievable. But her impact, I think, on the sport is yet to be seen, because she is really, she may have the impact on the WNBA as somebody like a Jackie Robinson had on baseball.
I agree with that.
The crowds are sold out with every game. The players now are, requesting, you're starting to see them asking to get paid more. And she is going to bring that type of revenue into the WNBA. I mean, it's going to explode.
Yeah. Interesting. Folks, we got another man in here, Jeromy Murray from Pristine Auctions. Jeromy, how are you?
Hey, guys.
You know everybody, right?
I do.
You don't know him, do you?
I do. I do know Jeff.
Al, do you know Jeromy?
We haven't met, I don't think.
How are you? Nice to meet you down there.
Good to meet you. From Pristine Auctions. All right, so we're talking about the WNBA, but I want to switch gears a little bit. I want to talk about the real vintage players and compared to the modern players, because that's still, we're doing a thing, and I think some of you know, on the Great American Collectibles Show. Al's been a big proponent of this, by the way. We're doing the Great American Collectibles. We did the baseball tournament. And the 1929 Yankees, 1927 Yankees wound up in the finals beating the 1939 Yankees. But got to be honest with you, my wife thinks I'm nuts because I really spend a lot of time on YouTube watching old vintage footage, because they've colorized it now, they've slowed it down, and it's really, really fun to watch. I watch Babe Ruth and his batting stance, and I see him at the plate lunging, and the way he keeps his feet together.
Yeah.
John, you're a bat guy. I'm going to ask you the question. Could Babe Ruth compete and hit in today's world? I know Orlando hates me asking these questions. Go ahead.
The Bambino would compete at any league at any time.
Jeromy, what do you think?
I think with the pitching today, it would be challenging, especially with the weight of his bat, swinging that bat.
What?
I can't contain myself.
Joe says he can't contain himself. Go ahead.
Okay. I hear this brought up all the time. Totally unfair to compare people from different generations.
And I agree.
But we're going to do it anyway. So if Babe Ruth were playing today, he wouldn't be using a small tree as a baseball bat.
Correct.
Because there's this thing called science today that they didn't use back then. So that would be, the whole thing is that Babe Ruth, his physical ability, he was so far ahead of everyone at the time. I mean, try to comprehend, we know how incredible Shohei Ohtani is. Imagine Shohei Ohtani out-homering entire teams. That's what Babe Ruth did routinely. He hit more home runs than entire teams did in the league. So the physical ability is there. The game has changed. And if he were playing today, he wouldn't be using the bat. He would actually, there's another thing called nutrition and fitness that would have played in. I mean, these guys there are tremendous advantages then, and there are tremendous advantages today. It really is unfair to compare them. But guys that have, in any sport, guys that have elite talent, I don't care if they played during the 20s and 30s, in any sport, basketball, the 60s. You're telling me Wilt Chamberlain couldn't play today?
No, I agree with that.
The guys who are really elite athletes, they could play in really any generation. It's just that the game and all of the things around the game have changed so much that it's hard to compare.
All right, do you agree with that?
Oh, man. So I think the way you put it is really convincing and compelling, because I wouldn't have thought of it that way.
However,
there has never been an athlete more dominant than, in comparison with his peers, than Babe Ruth. He was so much better than everybody that he played with, and I don't think it gets to that level. I'm gonna do this.
Go.
I don't think it gets to that level until you see Barry Bonds. I don't think there's ever been a player more dominant than Babe Ruth, and maybe second was Barry Bonds.
But no, I was just going to say, and the first thing that came up on the table here was the weight of Babe Ruth's bats. you have to understand that when Ruth was using this type of lumber, he was coming out of the dead ball era. You know, Ruth brought baseball and the long ball. You know, he really is responsible for it. I mean, he led the league with, what was it, Joe? I think 19 home runs. Yeah. 18 home runs when he was traded from, or sold to the New York Yankees.
29.
29, right. And then the home run barrage begins. But, you know, right from his own book, he says the greatest move that he ever made was when he lightened his bats. He starts lightening the bats in 1925, 26. By the end of the 20s, early 30s, you know, in respect to Ruth, he's using light bats of 36 to 38 ounces. Now, that was light for Ruth, but still the game changed. The bats went from dead ball era style with a thin barrel to a bulbous barrel and a thinner handle, and that was all because of Ruth. Ruth changed the game.
So, Joe, I'm sorry, go on.
No, go on.
So, Joe, you think that so Ruth he would work out, he would be better nourished, he would have a better training regimen. You think he has the hand-eye to get around on 100 miles an hour?
Yeah.
He was probably hitting 70 miles an hour in 1920.
I don't know if he was hitting 70, but I tell you what, I watched it. John may be familiar with this video. So there was a video that came out maybe, 20 years ago or so, and it was Paul O'Neill was handed a bat that was made today, but it was in the specifications for Ruth. And he was talking about how hard it was just to hit batting practice with that weight. So what I'm saying is you could flip it around. Give a modern-day player a 40-ounce bat.
Sure.
Good luck hitting a slow-pitch softball. With that. I mean,
Good
so
point.
it's just different eras, different equipment, different training. I mean, I do think that Ruth, to your point, I think he had the natural ability to adjust.
We are chatting with Al Crisafulli from Love of the Game Auctions, Joe Orlando, Executive Vice President of Heritage, John Taube from JT Sports, Jeromy Murray from Pristine. We're going to take a quick break for about 10 seconds, and we're going to bring up Tom Finklemeir from... Everybody has to have insurance. This is a huge important thing we're going to talk about, because if you don't have insurance for your collectibles, you're nuts. Hang in there. We'll be right back.
Hey collectors, mark your calendars. Lucky's Promotions presents the East Coast National, happening August 15th through the 17th at the Westchester County Center in White Plains, New York. We're talking 400 plus tables of sports cards, memorabilia, and top hobby vendors, on-site authentication and grading all weekend long. From Beckett, JSA, CAS, SGC, CGC, and more. Free autograph guests Saturday and Sunday with paid admission. Show hours start Friday at 3 p.m. with early access at 1 p.m. Admission is just $15 per day, and kids under 12 get in free with an adult. Early access Friday, that's $40 and includes all-day admission. Tickets are sold at the door, cash only. Don't miss one of the biggest hobby shows on the East Coast. Follow at East Coast National for updates.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Curry, a two-time child cancer survivor, recipient, and advocate for Lucy's Love Bus. The mission of Lucy's Love Bus, 501c3 nonprofit, is to provide joy, comfort, and quality of life for the entire family of children with cancer. Since 2006, they have delivered love and comfort to over 3,000 children with cancer and their family members across New England. The dream of Lucy Grogan, an 11-year-old cancer patient, was to help kids with cancer who are suffering right now, before there is a cure, by offering free, integrative therapies like art, music, horseback riding, and many other activities. Unfortunately, Lucy passed away, but her dream lives on, and today Lucy's Love Bus is thriving.
I'm Red Sox Hall of Famer Rico Petroselli. I hope that you'll consider supporting Lucy's Love Bus and all of those children who have been stricken by cancer. The Great American Collectibles Show is partnering with Lucy's Love Bus to help these kids. Let's continue Lucy's dream. Please go to lucyslovebus.org for more information.
Pristine Auction is a family-owned and operated online auction. specializing in autographed memorabilia, sports cards, coins, art, and collectibles. Since their founding in 2010, they've grown to 2 facilities in Phoenix, Arizona, totaling over 60,000 square feet. Jared Cavalier and an incredible staff of over 150 team members serve a very large customer base and enjoy every minute of it. By working with leading authentication companies, Pristine ensures all items are 100% authentic. In addition, third-party authenticators regularly travel to Pristine Auction to provide authentication services on site. Pristine Auction strives to operate its business in a way that's honoring to God, their families, and their customers. With a strong focus on speed, quality, and premier customer service, their mission is to be the leading online auction for every level of collector and fan. Pristine also works for Hope Sports and Identity Hoops International, traveling to Mexico to build houses for the less fortunate. Pristine Auction offers several online auction formats with thousands of auctions ending each day. For more information, go to pristineauction.com. That's Pristine Auction, the best in the business.
If you are a discerning collector interested in owning the most important pieces in the hobby, look no further than Leland's Auctions. The original sports auction and appraisal house, Leland's was established in 1985 by legendary Pioneer founder Joshua Leland Evans. And today, President Mike Hefner carries on the tradition. From the Tom Brady card and memorabilia collection to the famed Boston Garden Auction to high-end card auctions from every major sport, Leland's has always maintained the highest standards. Go to Lelands.com and get your bid in. That's Leland's, the hobby's leading sports auction house for 4 decades.
It's often been said that championships are won on the practice field, and world records come only to those willing to work harder than everybody else. Heritage Auctions is the world's largest collectibles auctioneer because we believe that becoming the best is only an invitation to the challenge of remaining the best. This requires the skills of the hobby's top experts, capable of identifying and maximizing value for our consigners. It requires the most visited website in the industry, courting a global audience of collectors over 1.5 million strong. It requires a dedicated press department that expands our global reach far beyond the entrenched hobby marketplace. It's hard work, but a simple premise. Present the finest collectibles to the largest population of potential buyers, and world records will come. We invite all listeners to put the unmatched power of Heritage Auctions to work for you. Auction evaluations are always free, and our commission-based fee structure ensures that our interests are always aligned. The highest possible price for your collectibles. There will always be new world records to chase, so let's chase them together. Visit our website at ha.com and request your no-obligation review today.
Hi, this is Dan from Memory Lane Auctions, here to remind you that the renowned Memory Lane Collectibles Company has served as a beacon of light to the collecting community for the past several decades. Indeed, folks, it has been our utmost privilege and pleasure to provide the most enthusiastic collectors with an abundance of the finest sports cards and memorabilia for America's most coveted sports personalities via our world-class auctions. Whether you choose either a private sale transaction or the auction route, Memory Lane cordially invites you to reach out to us to maximize the value of your prized possessions. Also, it is not just sales that we pride ourselves on being the best of the rest, because if you are seeking a particular keepsake for your esteemed gathering, we will be relentless in our quest to find that special piece to fulfill your collecting dreams. So no time to wait. Reach out to us today for the purposes of capitalizing on our unparalleled marketing capabilities. Simply pick up the phone and dial 877-606-5263. That's 877-606-LANE, or find us on the World Wide Web at www.memorylaneinc.com. Now is the time for your valued consignment to ultimately become another one of Memory Lane's record-setting prices.
Okay, we're back. Joe, why don't I'm going to stand. No, Tom, sit right over here. Grab a seat.
I can hold that.
I think, as I said, it's hugely important. If you do not have insurance for your collectibles, you're making a big mistake. I think we all agree to that.
I could tell you a lot of stories about people that made big mistakes over the years.
All right, so we want to know, first of all, I mean, how important is it? I guess the first question is, let's talk about homeowners insurance. Sure. If you have homeowners insurance, is your memorabilia collection covered?
Well, that's a solid it depends, Tom. Yes, it's covered, but the problem is, if your homeowner's insurance is written correctly, it's what's called replacement cost. And people say, well, I got a 1952 Topps PSA 4 Mickey Mantle. I get another PSA 4 Mickey Mantle, don't I? No, you don't. Replacement cost is the cost to replace the lost item with a similar item of like kind and quality new. So you lose a 52 Mantle, they owe you one brand new baseball card. Not a Mantle, not a collectible, just a baseball card. And they're not cheating you. For a television set, that's great. You got Granny's old tube TV, a Crosley from the 50s. If it burns up, you get a new flat screen. Great, that's what you want. It doesn't work for antiques or collectibles, Tom. You need special coverage for that.
By the way, guys, jump in here if you have any questions regarding insurance. Al, did you have a question?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I have a lot of
Mostly
questions.
they just yell at me, it's too expensive.
No, exactly. So what about appraisals? Do I have to have my entire collection appraised?
Well, absolutely not. The beauty is most of the companies that we work with, and our advantage is that we represent every company that does this. We are the only retail agent that does this nationwide, and we represent all the companies you've ever heard of that will insure collectibles. For dealers in particular, who's a dealer going to get an appraisal from? Their competitor? You're not going to get an appraisal. These are the guys you would go to Joe Orlando to get your item appraised. You wouldn't. Why would he go get it? He knows what it's worth. The market knows what it's worth. We insure it for the fair market value. And for most items that aren't truly irreplaceable, it's easy to go out and find comparable sales and set a market price.
John, you've used Tom for how many years? You have to talk on the mic.
Tom, how many years?
Since I was about 8 years old.
Since
my late father was, Tom Sr. was actually John's insurance agent and Joe's long before. I've known Joe since before he wrote his first book.
Oh, that book, I remember that one.
That was what, 08? 08? Yeah.
I remember that.
Goes way back.
No, that was actually, it was a very good book. As a matter of fact, I know that
I have an autographed copy, Tom.
Well, I know that Ken Kendrick used your book as a template to build his collection, your first book. He really did, and you know that, right? Right. Yeah. So anyway,
pretty great book.
Insurance. I think it's really, really important. Al, I want to ask you, insurance. Do you talk to your customers? I mean, does that conversation ever come up?
It comes up all the time.
All the time.
Because in our case, most of what we're selling is consignments. So it's somebody else's material, and they want to make sure that it's protected while it's in my possession. They want to make sure that it's protected while I'm here at the National, or while I'm transporting it from point A to point B, or while I'm shipping it to a winning bidder. So yeah, it's a critical part of my business.
Jeromy, same thing?
Yeah, same thing. You've got to have trust of your consigners. In the card grading business, the same way. You've got to build a relationship and know that when people send you prized possessions, they're insured the entire way through the process.
I'm going to throw a question out to Steve Lane. On your collection, Steve. Now, Steve Lane, he's got just an amazing Mickey Mantle collection, probably the greatest Mickey Mantle collection in the country. Soon to be disposed of. But Steve, how important, and we don't have a mic for you, but you're loud anyways. How important was insurance to your collection? All right, come on up here. Go ahead. Hand him a mic. Jesus. Hand him a mic. Right here, Steve. Oh, there you go. Okay. Yeah.
Look, I've been collecting for 65 years. Mantle stuff that's valued in the millions of dollars. You could find it at Heritage later today. But
Booth 404. Ask for Steve.
I live in New Orleans where there's hurricanes and floods and every other kind of catastrophe you could think of. And if I didn't have insurance, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night because I'd always be worried.
Didn't you have a girlfriend named Katrina?
What? Yeah.
Used to live in that
Exactly.
area?
Exactly.
Katrina, I was lucky I didn't lose my collection, but I know people who have collections that didn't have insurance like I did and lost their collections in New Orleans and were just out hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, I mean, if you have a collection that's worth 6 figures or more, or even, even if it's one card, if you have one of those Mickey Mantle cards, it's worth it to go out and get the insurance to make sure it's covered if anything happens, a loss, a flood, a fire. I had a 52 Topps Mantle years ago that one of my stepson's friends came in the house and stole it. We weren't able to prove it, but I was out that card. But at that time, 15 or 20 years ago, I did not have insurance. I learned my lesson from that. So, yeah, you need to have insurance if you're a serious collector.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. Tom, I want to ask you.
Yes, sir.
I mean, what are things that people can do with their collections in their homes to help not have to go to you? You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Like safes, vaults.
Yep.
What can they do?
Tom, that's a great question. It's one we get all the time. The beauty of insuring collectibles is these are people's favorite possessions. So they will take those extra steps that they won't with their household possessions. So, for example, it is not uncommon to put collectibles in the basement because most people are not blessed enough to have a house large enough to have a room just for their collectibles. So they'll put stuff in the basement. Well, you'll put your wife's wedding dress in a box right under the kitchen sink and you won't think twice about those pipes. But when you've got your 56 Topps down there, you start looking around saying, what's above there? What's these pipes? Simple things like heavy Visqueen from Lowe's, drape your racks. So if there is a water leak above, it runs off. Don't put anything on the floor in the basement. Have everything a minimum of 12 inches off the floor. The biggest thing I can tell most individual collectors, like our friend Steve here, anonymity is key. My father had a shelf where his 52 Mantle used to live in his den, and he would brag those cards up to every young man that came courting to my sisters when they were in high school. And one day he was sitting at his desk paying bills, and he realized there's only a pane of glass between Mickey and freedom.
Wow.
And I've been bragging it up to all these teenage boys in my town. Mickey then went to live into a safe that was bolted to the floor in his bedroom, and lesser cards at a lower price point went on the display shelf. It's all about common sense and thinking ahead.
I've got to be honest, that's exactly what I did in my house. You feel great being able to display your collection, but after the light went on and my wife began to yell at me, I decided to put my lesser cards on display and go from there.
Well, what else you'll run into, Tom? Like I said, anonymity is your friend. That many times, if you're a local collector that has risen to prominence, somebody in your town will mention it, and the local paper wants to do a puff piece on, Tom Finklemeir collects baseball cards, and they're worth all this money. You just made yourself a target. I don't talk to anybody about what I own. I don't want anybody to know, because then I'm a target. I don't want somebody coming to see if I'm on vacation. Maybe they can rummage around and find Mickey in the house.
How can people get in touch with you?
Easy. Our website is the F as in Fox, I as in India, A as in Alpha.com. The FIA, the Finklemeir Insurance Agency. We have a webpage there dedicated for collectibles, but the important thing is our phone number. Just pick up the phone. My sister Jody is actually mad at me because she's not here at the show. I made her stay there to work. Jody is the customer service person that is there to answer everybody's call at all times. And once in a while, I'll show up to work, and you can talk to me too.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom. We
Thank you
appreciate
so much,
coming.
Tom. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Tom Finklemeir from Finklemeir Insurance. Get your insurance. We've got about 5 minutes to go with these gentlemen. I have one more question for you guys. So we're talking about Babe Ruth, talking about them hitting. Let's talk about pitching. All right? Again, I've seen many vintage films of Walter Johnson pitching. Now, Walter Johnson, I think, is an exception to the rule because of his delivery. But when you see some of these other great pitchers, could they pitch today? Al.
I'm thinking about this in an entirely new light, given the way Joe presented the whole Babe Ruth argument. Because my feeling has always been no, and no.
Okay.
And so, but when you think of it contextually, could Christy Mathewson, living today with today's technology and today's nutrition and today's workout routines and all of that, could he dominate today? Well, yeah, he was an elite pitcher in his era, and he would, be an excellent pitcher today. If you took Christy Mathewson out of 1908 and dropped him into the Yankees rotation tomorrow, no.
Good point.
So,
Joe, let's go.
There is I'll try to make this short and sweet. There's a great interview with John Smoltz about what's happening today and with pitchers and comparing them to the past pitchers. You can find it on YouTube. I suggest you do. Major League Baseball has fallen in love with velocity, and the thing is, all major league hitters can hit a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. Like that's not hard. That's not the hard thing to hit. Pitching is about location, movement, keeping hitters off balance. I think we're in a bad cycle here with everyone's. It's the radar gun. Everyone's in love with the radar gun. Everyone's blowing out their elbows. John Smoltz in this interview, I mean, he says in it, he goes, look, a lot of us could throw upper 90s, 100 miles. We just paced ourselves.
Sure.
You'll watch old videos of guys like Nolan Ryan. They're throwing harder in the 7th and 8th inning and 9th inning than they were in the first 3 because they were pitching. They weren't throwing. So I think great pitching is great pitching because, again, it's an art, and it's about keeping the hitter off balance, movement, location. So my answer would be the really great pitchers of the past, they could pitch in any
Interesting take. John, your thoughts?
I agree with Joe. I mean, the game today, I'm more of a traditionalist. What I see today with the starting pitcher going 5-6 innings, and they're getting applauded, for doing that. The complete game is a thing of the past. You're looking at Seaver and Koufax, Christy Mathewson, Walter Johnson, Bob Feller. I think pitchers at that level in today's game would also be, as you said, would be using the same training techniques. Hopefully not as much in the gym, because I think that's got more to do with the injury, and it's almost acceptable for when pitchers that they expect to have Tommy John surgery, and here they are, they take a year off, they come back.
Yep.
Awesome.
They're giving it preemptively in high school to pitchers now.
Yeah.
Jeromy.
I think the older pitchers may love some workload. Amazing what they could do if they did have to go 5 innings and got pulled to rest up 3, 4, 5 days to go again. They're probably not used to that.
Yeah. Good point. They pitch every day.
Yeah,
500
exactly.
innings a season.
Yep.
All right, listen, we're just about done with our first segment. I want to thank Al Crisafulli from Love of the Game Auctions. What booth? You have no idea, do you?
Booth 1020. Come on. Booth 1021 and 1023. We've got an auction running right now, and lots of stuff on display from that auction.
Joe, I'm not going to ask Joe what his booth number is. Just go to the Heritage, one of the bigger ones, Heritage Auctions, and you'll find Joe there. JT, John Taube, do you have any idea what your booth number is?
It's booth number 705. Stop by and you'll see some great vintage material and new material.
And Jeromy, the Pristine, look, he's got, it's like the deer in the headlight look.
We're at 557 right across here. We have live auctions going on all day, show exclusives. all weekend. So we're excited about that.
Fantastic. Guys, I want to thank you so much. How about a nice round of applause to these gentlemen? Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to us.